1 in 9.2 quintillion. That is the odds of you making a perfect bracket. Me, my odds are 1 in 1. Today I'm going to show you the perfect March Madness bracket. Stay tuned. Before we jump into it, I'm not even going to act like I know a bunch about college basketball. I've watched a few games. I follow a few teams. I don't follow it as much as I did last year. But I'm not going to go into this completely blind. I used a little bit of knowledge given to me by a few apps, some analysis, some data. I used Sleeper, ESPN, Pick Hoops, some random articles, and so I think I've got enough. Actually, I know I've got enough to make the greatest bracket anybody's ever laid eyes on. Foolproof. Let's get into it. So, my bracket is going to be based off of two things. Number one, the data and the notes that I wrote down getting from my apps and the little amount of college basketball that I've watched this year, and personal vendettas. Now that we got that out of the way, let's start with the South region. Starting with the South region, where we have the number 1 overall seed Alabama taking on the winner of Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, and Southeast Missouri State. At the time of this recording, Corpus Christi just beat Southeast Missouri State in an actually really competitive game. I was pretty worried, not because it's going to impact the tournament at all, but because I made a bet on it. But given how competitive this game is, Corpus Christi might only lose by 20. Moving on to number 8, Maryland against the number 9, West Virginia. I hate the 8 and 9 games. I hate all of them, basically. This one, I really don't know much about either team, except Maryland is very bad at basketball when they are playing an away game, and they have a pretty good defense, 63.2 points per game allowed, and they do play in the Big Ten, which has some pretty good basketball teams. West Virginia, 76.3 points per game, 45% field goal percentage, which is the same as Maryland. Not really too many statistical advantages or disadvantages, except you just look at the home and away record. I'm just going to go with Maryland here because of their defense. They're not necessarily playing a home game, but they're not playing an away game either. They're going to be playing at a neutral site. Give me Maryland in this one. Moving on to the 5-12 matchup, which is the San Diego State Aztecs versus Charleston. I forgot their mascot already. But the Aztecs have a good defense. They're playing a 12 seed. I don't think there's going to be a 5-12 seed yet. So I'm going to pick the Aztecs here. San Diego State is going to the next round. Next, we have number 4 Virginia against the number 13 Furman. Furman is in its first tournament since 1985. Virginia, usually a tournament staple, is not as good as they usually are. I mean, a 4 seed is no slouch, but they are also on my shit list because on a fateful day 5 years ago, a 16 seed in UMBC beat Virginia. So ever since then, I have been unable to pick them with any confidence, at least. But they are playing Furman, who has no top 100 wins. Their defense isn't good. I wouldn't have heard of this school if it wasn't for this tournament. But you know what? It's March Madness. It's Virginia. Give me Furman. I know this is kind of a popular pick amongst fans as far as 4-13 upsets go. But give me Furman here. I'm still never going to get over that. I had Virginia winning that year. I'm never going to forget Creighton versus NC State. The 6 versus the 11. NC State being the 11 seed that some people don't think should have gotten into the tournament, at least competing in a play-in. They think Rutgers probably should have been in their spot, but Rutgers just lost in the NIT. So there goes that argument, right? A common trend in this bracket is that you'll see I'm very high on Big East teams. They're one of the only conferences I know a smidge about, so I'm gonna go Creighton here. Love my Big East teams. Don't know much about NC State, but with one of the most common things I'm hearing is that they shouldn't have been in the tournament, it's kind of a red flag, so I'm gonna go with Creighton here. Next, we have the number 3 Baylor against the number 14 UC Santa Barbara. The Big West champs. Nobody good is in the Big West, but I'm not going to hold that against UC Santa Barbara. 27 wins, 7 losses. The Bears of Baylor have some similarities to Santa Barbara. Bad defense. Both teams bad defense. But apparently, Santa Barbara is pretty tall. They've got some big men. High field goal percentage, 49%. Great at the 2-point offense. But that's not selling me, man. Give me Baylor here. I'm not going to be picking a Big West champ over Big 12. That's how your brackets get broken, but hey. Give me Baylor here. Number 7 Missouri against number 10 Utah State. Utah State at the number 10 is a favorite in this, which I found pretty surprising. They do have a really good offense. 39% from the 3. 48% field goal percentage, 78 points per game. Not as many points per game as Missouri, but I'm kind of liking them right here, if I'm being honest. A 10 over a 7 isn't absolutely outlandish. One of the weaknesses in the notes that I have here is Missouri's defense is not great, aside from forcing turnovers. 5 straight first-round exits dating back to 2011. I mean, and look what round they're playing in. It's the first round. Jeez. You know what? Give me Utah State. I've got faith in the Mountain West. That's 2 wins for the Mountain West so far. Don't let me down. Next, we have Princeton at the 15 against the number 2 Arizona. I feel bad for the Ivy League because they can have a really good season, win their conference, and just get fucking thrown into the fire against Arizona. Going back to the top, we have Alabama versus Maryland. I'm going with Alabama here because even if Maryland has a bunch of a good defense, Alabama's got certified shooters. San Diego State and Furman. San Diego State, good defense, just like Virginia has a good defense. Furman, I gave you the win over the 4, not the 13. I can't give you the win over the 5. Make it make sense. Not going to. San Diego State, moving on. Next, we have Creighton and Baylor. 2 teams that have been seemingly inconsistent this year. Again, love my Big East teams. This Big East team in particular opened the year top 10 in the poll. Stayed consistently in the top 25 throughout the year. Along with Baylor, same thing. Both are really good teams, really good offenses, but also inconsistent. Baylor has some impressive victories, but I don't know. I mean, it's March. I don't know. I've just got this like weird connection with with Big East teams that makes me kind of go in favor. I've been seeing a lot of people pick Creighton over Baylor in this round, given that they have the same matchup. So let's go with Creighton here. Moving on to Utah State and Arizona. Utah State, lucky to be a favorite as a 10 seed against a 7, but they're not going to get lucky again. Arizona is one of the best teams in the nation. I don't like them, but I got to pick them here. So we are now in the Sweet 16, starting off with Alabama versus San Diego State. In the past 2 matchups, I have been favoring San Diego State because of their defense, and I've also been favoring Alabama because of their offense. I just don't think that the Mountain West holds a good enough offense to prepare San Diego State for a team like Alabama. Alabama is one of the better scoring teams in the nation. They are touted as the best team in the nation according to the seedings in this bracket. So therefore, I'm going with Alabama. And in the other matchup in the South region, we have Creighton versus Arizona. Creighton, in 23 trips to the dance, has never been to an Elite 8. Will they make it here? They play Arizona. Arizona has been eliminated before the Final Four in each of its last 16 appearances in the tournament. So they're really contradicting each other with these terrible trends and making it kind of hard to pick based on those. But I'm just going to have to go with Arizona here. They're just too good to be getting beat by Creighton. It's a 2 versus 6. It's not crazy, but I got to go with Arizona here. Set up the 1 versus 2 in the Elite 8. So that brings us to the Elite 8, where we have Bama and Arizona. 2 teams that start with an A. 2 top seeds in the South region. 2 of the best teams in the nation. But if we go to my notes here, my professional notes, Arizona, in the last 6 games, 4 of those games they allowed more than 80 points. You cannot do that against this Alabama offense. Also, eliminated before the Final Four in each of its last 16 trips to the tournament. That is not a trend. You're either hot or you're due. But after this, they're still going to be due. Gimme Bama. So we have our winner of the South region. Alabama is going to the Final Four. Now we're going to head to the East region, where we have Purdue at the number 1 seed against the winner of Fairleigh Dickinson and Texas Southern. Texas Southern sounds like a better school, so I'm going to go with them. Of course, these play-in games don't really matter, except the 11 seed play-ins kind of matter. And it doesn't matter because they're not going to beat the number 1 seed. So give me Purdue. Next, we have the 8 and 9 matchup of Memphis and Florida Atlantic University. 2 teams that are better than what their seed probably suggests. Florida Atlantic, a 30-win team, and is a 9 seed. People say that they are grossly underseeded. Memphis just handed it to Houston in their conference tournament championship and have been pretty competitive all year. So this is a bit of a hard one, kind of a shitty matchup because they probably shouldn't be these seeds, mainly Florida Atlantic. But I'm going to go with Memphis here. Sorry to FAU fans, if there are any. Memphis I'm definitely holding on to recency bias right now, but give me Memphis. Oh, hey, look, Duke at a number 5 seed. Usually they're a little bit higher, but respectable team. They should have no problem getting a win right here. I got to check who they're playing. Oh, fuck. Duke is playing Oral Roberts. Remember them? I think it was an Elite 8, 15 seed. one of the best scoring teams in the country. They are a 12 seed, of course, because the conference that they play in is butt cheeks. But everything is lining up for an upset here. 5-12. There's always 5-12 upsets. Oral Roberts have had a legendary run and a legendary upset. Multiple, actually, because of that run. And it's against a blue blood like Duke. 30-4 record. Everything's lining up. Why should I not do it? I don't know. But I just can't do it. I'm sorry. Duke is moving on. Next, we have Tennessee at the 4 spot against Louisiana at the 13. Tennessee was one of the best teams in the nation throughout the year, and they have suffered a big injury with Ziegler, and they're not going to be the same team at all without him. They haven't been already. So I'm going to go with Tennessee here. Probably not as comfortably as they usually would have, but they're still going to win. Next, we have the number 6 Kentucky against the number 11 Providence. Providence was one of the teams that I was high on coming into the year and last year when I watched college basketball a little more. Now, I'm kind of like stuck on them being good, even though they're really not as good as I thought or think they are. Regardless, I'm going to go with Kentucky here. I'm not really comfortable with taking Providence, a struggling Providence team, against a blue blood that is due for a tournament win, especially after that brutal St. Peter's loss last time they were in the tournament. So give me Kentucky. Kansas State and Montana State, 3 versus 14. Both cat mascots, in case mascots is something that you're into when you're doing your bracket predictions. I'll probably make one of those. But not a very interesting game to me. Montana State on like an 8-game win streak right now. Doesn't matter because they play in the Big Sky. Kansas State has had some pretty impressive victories this year. So I'm going to go with them in this one pretty easily. Side note, I am recording this as Pitt and Mississippi State are in the final 10 seconds of the game. We're going to do a little live play-by-play reaction here. Inbound, 6 seconds left, Mississippi State. Oh, he blocked it. Oh my God. This is huge, boys. This is huge. All right, here we go. The score is 60-59. Pitt leads. 2.7 seconds left. Inbounding from the baseline. Mississippi State. Oh my God, he's wide open for the corner 3. Oh, he fucking missed it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Welcome to March Madness, boys. Back to the bracket. It's the number 7 Michigan State Spartans versus the number 10 USC Trojans. Both teams not as good as they have been in recent years. Still in the tournament, though. USC not great away from home. A very big team going against Michigan State. A terrible 2-point shooting squad who can snipe from the 3-point line, apparently. A great coach, one of the best coaches in college basketball. And when it comes to that, in the first round between these two, I'm just going to go with the better coach in this one. And I'm going to go with the not as cool Greek mascot. A little bit of reverse mascot bracket picking. And that's really just not a game that I'm too interested in, and I don't think it's going to affect my bracket very much. Moving on to number 2, Marquette versus number 15, Vermont. Vermont has a similar situation as every single Ivy League winner, is that they're in the tournament like every year, and they're a good team for where they play, but when they get put into the tournament, 15 seed against the number 2 Marquette, who was like the number 6 team in the nation about a week and a half ago. So, I mean, they're going to get curb stomped, but it doesn't mean they're bad. So that brings us to round 2. in the East region. Number 1, Purdue. Number 8, Memphis. Oh, a lot of people say that Purdue is the weakest number 1 seed in the tournament. I said earlier that Memphis is probably better than their number 8 seeding, and they also beat one of the top 2 number 1 seeds in the tournament not that long ago. So with that being said, recency bias fully acknowledged, I'm going to take Memphis for the first number 1 upset. Memphis is going to the Sweet 16. Moving on, we have the number 5 Duke against the number 4 Tennessee. Tennessee is already dealing with injuries. They're going to handle a 13 seed in Louisiana, but I don't think that they're going to be able to get past Duke. Given the injuries, I just don't think that they're going to put enough together to get past this Duke team. So Duke is also moving on to the Sweet 16 to meet Memphis. Next, we have the number 6 Kentucky against the number 3 Kansas State. A little Wildcat on Wildcat action. Kentucky, while they are a 6 seed, kind of pulled themselves together at the end of the year. They still got John Calipari. And Kansas State kind of not necessarily not pulling themselves together at the end, but the last 8 games, 7 of those games they've lost away from home. And, quote, several in blowouts. Obviously, not going to have any home field advantage here. I'm again going to go with another coach that I know, a team that I know. Sometimes you got to take the safe bets, even if they're really not that safe, because this is technically an upset. But give me Kentucky. Next, we have Michigan State and Marquette. I said before, I don't think that Michigan State and USC's game is really going to affect my bracket. So I'm gonna move Marquette forward. Hey, Big East champs. Their first time, actually, fun fact. And really, I just don't see Michigan State as too big of a threat right now, and I'm really high on Marquette, so I'm pushing Marquette forward into the Sweet 16. Now we have Duke and Memphis meeting in the Sweet 16, the semifinal to the East region. Now this is a bit hard because putting Memphis past the number 1 seed is already crazy enough, right? Are they going to get past the number 5 seed in Duke, a blue blood, a consistent tournament bid, a team that's always here? They may not have Coach K there, but I could definitely see them winning and going far in the tournament still. But they're not getting past Memphis, baby. I am full board the Memphis hype train, especially after that performance against Houston. I'm living in weeks in the past relative to the timeline of this bracket, but I don't care because it's my bracket. Memphis is going to the Elite Eight. Who will Memphis be meeting in the Elite Eight? Kentucky or Marquette? When looking at what I have written down, Marquette's 49% field goal percentage against a wildly inconsistent Kentucky Wildcats defense, I don't think that mixes well. Marquette, 80 points per game. Give me Marquette. Big East. Moving on to the Elite Eight to face Memphis. Number 8 Memphis in the Elite Eight against Marquette. Tigers, Golden Eagles, who's winning it? In this one, I've been telling you, I'm high on the Memphis hype train. They just took it to Houston. They've been a pretty decent team all year. But you know who's been a better team all year? That's Marquette. And if Marquette won the division, the conference that I'm super high on, How high do you think I am on them? Memphis has an aggressive D that creates a lot of steals and blocks. Thank you very much, Sleeper. But that's not going to be enough to shut down this Marquette offense. Marquette is winning the East. How fitting is it that a Big East team wins the East region? Next region, please. So now we're going to head to the Midwest region, where we start with Houston against Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky is a team that I would bet on a lot last year. And obviously they've gotten better since last year because they're kind of shitty for me. But even though they're better, they're still losing. Houston, baller-ass team. May not have won their conference. Still one of the best teams in the nation. One of the favorites to win the whole thing. So give me Houston. Next we have the 8-seeded Iowa and the 9-seeded Auburn Tigers. Iowa can score. Auburn plays good defense. Auburn burned me last year in my bracket. I hate the 8 and 9 seeded games. So here comes a personal vendetta. Auburn shouldn't have done me dirty last year. Iowa move into the second round. We have another 5-12 matchup here with Miami and Drake. A very popular pick to upset in the first round is Drake. Coincidentally, I have been screwed over by Miami. Thanks to their loss against Loyola Chicago, they made light work of their conference title game, making them look like a bunch of chumps, showing that they're made to be in this tournament. Last year, Miami made the Elite Eight. Their defense has struggled a little bit. 85 points allowed in 4 of their last 8 games. You know what? I'm sold on Drake from the amount of times that I've heard people picking them. That also scares me because popular picks don't usually turn out well. But give me Drake. Moving on to the 4-seeded Indiana against the 13-seeded Kent State. Now, we're talking about picks that I needed to be sold on. This is not one of them. I sold myself on this. I have been riding this pick since I saw they were in the tournament, since I saw them win the Mid-American Conference. Kent State, the Golden Flashes. I watched one game this year, and it was that Mid-American Conference Championship where they beat Toledo. Who cares if they're 0-3 in the tournament since 2003? Who cares if the Mid-American Conference isn't that good? Who cares if Indiana has beaten some really good teams this year and are a top 25 team in the nation? It's March. Give me the Golden Flashes. Moving on, we have the number 6 Iowa State against the 11 Pitt that barely squeaked out past Mississippi State. And after they barely squeaked out the win against Mississippi State, they will not be winning against Iowa State. Iowa State, a little bit inconsistent, played in a pretty good Big 12 conference. They made the Sweet 16 last year, and they're even better this year. I just don't see Pitt making it past this one. I don't think I have any 6-11 upsets. So, that being said, Iowa State to the next round. Next, we have Xavier and Kennesaw State at the 3 and the 14. Word on the street is that Kennesaw State is a really weak 14 seed. One of the notes on here is that Owls can rotate their necks 270 degrees. That tells you enough about the team that we're looking at right now, because they got to throw in fun facts about animals to show, to fill in the spot. So give me Xavier. I don't think that they're going to struggle at all in the first round. Texas A&M and Penn State at the 7 and 10 spots respectively. The Aggies were kind of gypped on their seeding. If you look at the top around, I think it's the 15 to 20 range in the top 25 rankings in the nation. All of them were from like 3 to 5 seeds. Smack dab in the middle is Texas A&M, and they got a 7 seed. Maybe the blowout against Alabama left a bad taste in the committee's mouth, but I think that was stupid, and they should be seeded differently. Penn State is a 10 seed, but definitely better than a 10 seed. They almost won the Big Ten tournament. It was a hell of a game against Purdue, and they had a lot of close games going down the stretch. And their ability to win these close games is what's going to have me moving them into the next round over Texas A&M. Sorry, Aggies. It really sucks that you're going to lose this game just because you shouldn't be playing this game in the first place. You should be at a higher seed playing a worse team. That being said, the Nittany Lions into round 2. Texas at number 2 and Colgate at number 15. I tried to look up some stats about Colgate. I tried to look up their logo for these graphics. I type in Colgate, just like how I type in the rest of the college's names. The toothpaste comes up before the college. Enough said. Next we have Houston and Iowa. I don't know much about Iowa. Houston has been one of my favorites all year long. One of the few teams that I've been watching. And of course, they're a number 1 seed. So what are the odds? Houston going to the next round. Drake and Kent State. A 12 and a 13 matchup in the round of 32. One guaranteed Cinderella team. Who is it going to be? You know who it's going to be. It's going to be Kent State. The Golden Flashes. They're going to move ahead to a rematch of a previous regular season game with Houston. Moving on, we have the number 6 Iowa State, the number 3 Xavier. Xavier has been a very good offense all year long until their Big East championship game, but we can graze over that because they are still a force to be reckoned with. And I'm going to push them forward into the next round here over Iowa State, who, as I already mentioned before, has had a little bit of a struggle in being inconsistent on the court this year. Give me Xavier. Penn State at the 10, Texas at the 2. Who's it going to be? Can Penn State be another Cinderella team? A double-digit seed moving on. They took it to one of the top teams in the nation, hung in there, but they didn't beat them. They thrive in close games, but they didn't beat the top team in the nation. They've definitely beaten some formidable opponents, but Texas is pretty damn good, and I don't think Penn State is quite good enough to get over the hump that is Texas. So Texas is moving on to play Xavier. Houston versus Kent State, a Cinderella team in Kent State at 13. A 1-13. Could you imagine that upset? I could. It'd be glorious. The world would be a utopia. But unfortunately, our world is not a utopia. It almost was. Earlier in the season, Kent State lost a single-digit deficit to Houston earlier in the regular season. They are not in a good conference, but they are definitely a good team who can play and hang in there with good teams. So I can see a close game and them actually getting this far. But I don't see them beating Houston. Houston is going to the Elite Eight. Xavier, Texas. Xavier, really good offense, as I mentioned before, complemented by a Texas defense that has given up some pretty gnarly point totals in the past. despite the complementing pieces of information on both sides, I'm still going to go with Texas here. I just don't feel right picking Xavier over Texas. I don't know why, because I know Xavier as a basketball school. I've known them ever since I started watching college basketball. That's the only thing I have known them for. I don't really think they're known for anything else anyway, but Texas, we're going to get a little Texas showdown here in the Elite Eight with Houston and Texas. Houston, a great scoring team against what I mentioned before. Texas has given up quite a few points on the season. Houston does only average 75 points per game compared to a lot of other teams that are, as highly ranked as them, but their opponent points per game is 56.5. The Longhorns allow 67.5 points, scoring 77.8 points per game. I'm going to take Houston here. I just think that they are definitely, I wouldn't say on fire, but on fire. They didn't win their conference tournament, but I can't see Texas getting past them, especially with that definitely breakable defense. So give me Houston to win the Midwest region and head to the Final Four. And to round out the regions, we have the West region, starting with Kansas playing Howard. And if this was football, where a big school is playing against Howard, I'd be a little worried for the big school, given their history. If you don't know the history of Howard and the getting paid to play bigger schools in college football, I recommend looking it up. It's a pretty cool little story. But it's not going to be very cool for Howard in the first round, as Kansas, no problem, they're moving on. Finally, the last 8 and 9 matchup, Arkansas and Illinois. Illinois and Arkansas have both been some pretty important pieces to my brackets in the last few years. Both teams, impressive teams. Illinois, they won some games against UCLA and Texas, two seeds that they have beaten. Arkansas, a win over Kentucky, a blowout while having a key injury. Illinois has the leg up, barely in the points per game and barely in the points allowed. So they're about dead even on the stat sheet, really, now that I'm looking at it. So given the resume for both teams, I'm going to take Illinois in this one. Next, we have VCU and St. Mary's. VCU winning 21 out of 24. They have an aggressive defense. And St. Mary's, an impressive team in the West Coast Conference. They did get smacked around by Gonzaga in the conference championship, but they are a great rebounding team. VCU, not a great rebounding team. That is a huge red flag right there. Maybe a 5-12 matchup, but this one's not getting me. St. Mary's is moving on. I had these graphics pre-made before I was doing my script reading, and I realized I made a mistake and I put VCU ahead. So I'm going to do some pro editing here, and I'm going to fix that real quick. But St. Mary's is going ahead. Next, we have UConn and Iona. UConn, the number 4. Iona, the number 13. Some people say that UConn is better than what their seed suggests, and as a 4 seed, that is something to be proud of because they can very well be one of the best teams in the nation. 14-0 start this year, one of the best rebounding teams with a good defense, but they are 0-2 in the NCAA tournament under their coach Dan Hurley. On the other side, a coach who is not 0-2 in the tournament, in fact has 54 wins in this tournament, Rick Pitino of the Iona Gales. This 54 win coach is bringing a 0-13 record of the Iona Gales into the tournament. So a lot of things lining up here record-wise where we should see the first win from somebody. And that is going to be UConn, despite their coach not having his first win. But he's only played 2 games in this tournament. Rick Pitino, experienced coach, but not at a powerful school. Give me UConn comfortably. TCU at the 6th spot, going against the 11 seed of either Nevada or Arizona State. Who's going to win that game, that play-in game? My pick, Arizona State, because I went there for a singular semester. So between Arizona State and TCU, who's going to win? It's TCU easily. They have some really impressive victories on the year. They beat Kansas, who is a 1 seed in this same region, by 23. They played in a very competitive Big 12 conference. On the other side, Arizona State, they would not be here if it weren't for a Hail Mary half-court shot at the buzzer against Arizona towards the end of the season. So give me TCU quite comfortably. Sorry to my single semester alma mater. Gonzaga at the 3 and GCU at the 14. I have no hesitation when I say Gonzaga is going to win this game. I know nothing about GCU except they play in the WAC. I am not even confident about that. Oh my god. I know they used to play in the WAC. I don't know if they moved or not. They're in Arizona. That's all I know about them though. So Gonzaga next round. 7 and 10 Northwestern and Boise State. The second time that Northwestern has sent a team to the tournament, and it is their best team out of the 2. Mainly carried by a defense who allows 62.5 points per game, with a 67.7 points per game on offense. So not a great scoring team going against the Boise State Broncos out of the Mountain West, who are 0-8 all-time in the tournament, including a pair of play-in game losses. Sleeper. Plenty of fun facts here. But a really good defense against a not-so-good offense spells not good for Northwestern. They beat Utah State, San Diego State, and Texas A&M. 3 pretty impressive wins on the season for Boise State. All teams that are in the tournament, but 3 teams, not including the play-in, from the Mountain West. Are they all going to win? You can't do that. The Mountain West isn't even good in March. You think I'm going to pick 3 out of 3? You got me fucked up, man. Going with the Big Ten. A good defense that plays in the Big Ten. Give me Northwestern. Hammer the under on this game. Well, let's head into the round of 32, the last one in the West region. Kansas, Illinois. I can definitely see Illinois ruining a lot of people's brackets, especially in this game. I think this game is a little bit closer than people would imagine. And I say that acting like I know what the fuck I'm talking about, but really, I'm just looking at the resume. They've got really good victories on the year. Really, the only thing is that Kansas, aside from them being really good, is that they're very well balanced, and that's not something that a lot of teams have in the tournament, according to the notes that I've taken. So Kansas is going to move ahead, but I could see a close game between the 2. Next, we have not VCU, St. Mary's against UConn. St. Mary's, who I was flipping back and forth between VCU until literally a couple minutes ago, taking on number 4, a team that I could definitely see going far in this tournament. But going to the stat sheet, UConn 78.5 points per game to St. Mary's 71.5. St. Mary's 60 points allowed per game to UConn 65. Same field goal percentage. really, I'm just going to put this one, I'm going to give this one to UConn, a team that I'm more confident in. I didn't think that they were going to struggle in the first round. I thought that St. Mary's was going to be in a tough game in the first round. And UConn is in the Big East, so UConn to the next round. Next, we have TCU and Gonzaga. TCU, already mentioned, impressive victories. Gonzaga, they're good every single year. The best scoring team in the nation. And that is something that really gives them a leg up on everybody else, and especially in my mind, is that's not something that I can really ignore when I'm trying to go through these matchups. And I'll be the first person to say, every single year, I do not like Gonzaga, really. I really don't like them that much. I always think that they're going to choke. I think that they're overseeded, and I always think that they're going to ruin my bracket, so I always try to avoid picking them. However, I'm going to pick them here because while TCU is a great team, a great defense, I'm still going to go with the insane 87.5 points per game by Gonzaga and majestic Drew Timme. I mean, just look at that guy, man. Gonzaga, moving on. Northwestern versus UCLA. I forgot to include UCLA in the first one. I really just grazed over them against UNC Asheville. That was so dumb. Okay, but UCLA is going to dispatch UNC Asheville. No problem. Now they're going against Northwestern. A battle of defense first teams. UCLA, 60 points per game allowed at 74 points per game scored. We've already gone over the offensive struggles of Northwestern at 67.7 points per game going against that terrifying defense of UCLA. Matchup nightmare for Northwestern. Give me the Bruins to move on. So that leads us into the Sweet 16 matchup of the Kansas Jayhawks versus the UConn Huskies. There is one glaring difference between these teams that is going to make a huge impact on this game. Kansas has no depth. UConn has a lot of depth. And that's going to be a huge factor in this game. And that's why UConn is moving on to the Elite Eight. UCLA and Gonzaga, a matchup of the nation's best offense and one of the top defenses in the nation as well. A rematch from the Final Four, I want to say it was 2 or 3 years ago. I believe it was 2 years ago, of a great game between the two. And will UCLA get their get back against Gonzaga? I don't think so, man. I would love them to. But with UCLA taking a big hit due to injuries on the best part of their game, which is their defense, going against the best offense in the nation in college basketball, I don't think it's a good matchup for them. Not that the nation's best offense is a good matchup for anybody, but given the injury, I don't think that it's not very good timing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There's more than to just one player on the defensive side of the ball. Losing Jalen Clark, it's more than just Jalen Clark. It's a team effort, of course, but I'm going to have to give this one to Gonzaga. So that leaves us to the Elite Eight, UConn and Gonzaga. Is this finally the year that Gonzaga goes all the way? They're a 3 seed, not a 1 seed. Are they going to make it to the Final Four, make it to the national championship over UConn, who's a 4 seed? We got a 3 and a 4 seed in the Elite Eight right now. But I'm sorry, Gonzaga. I'm not sorry, but I'm sorry. UConn is going to the Final Four. What's my motivation behind it? A gut feeling, maybe? The Big East, maybe? The constant letdown of Gonzaga in the tournament, maybe? I'm just going to throw UConn in there. End of discussion. So our Final Four is set. On the left side of the bracket, we have the South winner in Alabama going up against the East winner in Marquette. On the right side of the bracket, we have the Midwest winner in Houston going up against the West winner in UConn. We're going to start on the left side, Marquette versus Alabama. Now this is straight up not a good matchup for Marquette. A team that does not do well at guarding the three-point line, going against a terrific three-point shooting team in Alabama. But there's still a little bit of hope for Marquette here. Marquette has one of the best turnover margins among the whole tournament, so, the whole nation. Alabama, turnover margin is a major concern. So those are two very opposites on both sides. A good three-point shooting team with a turnover problem in Alabama, and a team that struggles to cover the perimeter while forcing a lot of turnovers in Marquette. It comes down to one thing for me. Two things. One, defense wins championships, right? But of course you have to score more points than the other team to win. But this leads me to number 2. Big East, baby. I'm pushing Marquette to the championship. Now we go over to the other side. Houston, UConn. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, UConn's a Big East team. You're just going to put them through because they're Big East. Well, give me a second to explain, okay? As you know, the notes that I have been reading off and have been inspired by are mainly from Sleeper. And I've got a few interesting notes here. Quote, has Houston become the new Gonzaga? End quote. Houston goes through colder than ice stretches on offense. Then you flip over to UConn. A relentless defense. However, this Final Four does take place in Houston. UConn has not been very good away from home, and this would be an away game due to Houston's home court advantage in Houston. But you already knew it from the beginning. This is March, and if Houston is the new Gonzaga, and I got a Big East team on my side fighting for them, going against them, you know I'm taking that Big East team. UConn is going to the national championship against Marquette. So we've got a Big East matchup. Marquette, UConn. Let's take a look. Marquette struggles to rebound. UConn is a very good rebounding team. Again, Marquette has a great turnover margin, one of the best. Sporadically, UConn will turn the ball over and commit too many fouls as well. So, you can look at all these matchups, and there's a lot of, it's almost in every single matchup we've seen, especially in the Elite Eight at least. It's going both ways. UConn, 78.5 points per game, allowing 65 points per game. Marquette, 80 points a game, allowing 70. Do what you want with that information. But I have a little bit of a personal connection, in a good way, with one of these teams, and I'm sure you could already guess which one it is. But when I used to play basketball in front of my house, I would always try to reenact some legendary shots when I was a kid, when I was a little younger. One of those was this filthy, disgusting step back made by Cardiac Kemba Walker. And due to that connection, because I really don't know, it's a toss-up, give me University of Connecticut, the Huskies, to win this year's national championship. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you copied down this bracket and basically collected all your winnings, all these side bets that you're doing, all these bracket challenges that you're doing. Hit up Warren Buffett, tell him to get you your milli, because this is a perfect bracket right here. Come back to this video. Don't say I didn't tell you so. Alright? Hope everybody enjoys this absolutely amazing time of year where basketball in college is just ridiculous, and it's not quite the unexpected, but the unexpected happens. But if we expect the unexpected, is it really unexpected? I don't know. But everybody, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, the rest of your month. And I'll see you guys later in the next video.